cosmos, space, and time travel, medicine, robotics, science, and technology. Professor Michio Kaku, theoretical physicist, graduated from Harvard University summa cum laude and first in his physics class. Received his PhD in physics from the University of California at Berkeley. And now, professor of physics at City University of New York for 30 years. His goal? To complete Einstein's dream of a theory of everything, to derive an equation, to summarize all the physical laws of the universe. The co-founder of string field theory, author of the international bestsellers Hyperspace, Visions, and Parallel Worlds, and voted as one of the 100 smartest people in New York, profiling the latest cutting-edge developments in science, which revolutionize our world and touch our lives. Now, Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku.
This is Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. On Science Fantastic, we profile the amazing, jaw-dropping scientific discoveries which are revolutionizing our world and touching our lives. And once again, in this hour, we're going to throw the lines open because this hour is your hour. This is the time when you can get to the telephones and give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129, and all we ask of you is that you leave your name, the call letters of the radio station you're listening to, and the city you're calling from, and perhaps you can be heard on over 100 radio stations that carry Science Fantastic. And some people say, well, gee, Professor, my question is kind of dumb. Should I ask it on radio and make a fool of myself? Well, first of all, chances are, if you have a question about science, chances are hundreds of other people have identical questions that they also want to ask. And second of all, sometimes the dumbest questions are the most profound. You realize that about 300 years ago, there was a young gentleman, just about 23 years of age, who asked himself a very simple, stupid question. And that is, if an apple falls, does the moon also fall? That question was asked by Isaac Newton. And when he got the answer, he discovered the universal law of gravitation, the law that makes it possible for space probes to explore outer space, the reason why we can send satellites right through the rings of Saturn. All these incredible feats of aeronautics made possible because a 23-year-old gentleman asked himself a simple question, and that is, if an apple falls, does the moon also fall? The moon, by the way, does fall. The moon is in free fall. In fact, our astronauts are also in free fall, and that's why they are weightless in outer space. And then there was a 26-year-old gentleman who asked himself a question. In fact, he asked the same question when he was only 16 years old, 10 years earlier. And that question was, can you outrace a light beam? Well, that young 16-year-old boy, took him 10 years to solve that, but his name was Albert Einstein. And when he solved the question, can you outrace a light beam? The answer is no, by the way. He revolutionized physics, gave us the atomic bomb, the hydrogen bomb, and unlocked the secret of the stars. Not bad for a guy who's only 16 years old. So if you have a question, why not get to the telephones and ask me? 866-323-2129 is the number to call. And also, you may want to check out some of the books I've written. I've written 3 New York Times bestsellers. The first one was Physics of the Impossible, about time travel, telekinesis, about moving at light speed. The second New York Times bestseller that I wrote was Physics of the Future, predicting the next 10, 50, the next 100 years in science. And then the last one was The Future of the Mind, which actually hit number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list. And that book was about, you guessed it, your brain. You realize that with physics now we can actually read thoughts. We can actually probe into how the brain functions. Telepathy, telekinesis, recording memories. We can do, quote, all of the above. Things that were once considered impossible. Find out more by going to my website, mkaku.org, mkaku.org. And also go to my Facebook site at Michio Kaku. We have over 3 million fans on Facebook and 500,000 fans on Twitter. So, once again, the lines are open. Give me a call at 866 323-2129. Okay, well, moving right along, let's move on to the first listener phone call.
Hi, Professor Kaku. I was just wondering, I was recently reading a book by David Eagleman where he spoke about how people can replace one sense, like the sense of hearing, with another, like the sense of touch. And so I was just wondering if you had any ideas or interesting things to talk about how there might be some other things that our brain is just not equipped to perceive out there. Thank you very much.
Well, in fact, I had Dr. Eagleman on a Science Fantastic asking him about the very things that you mentioned. There's something called synesthesia. And synesthesia is basically people who get their senses confused. So instead of hearing something, they see light. Now, I actually had somebody with synesthesia on radio, and he suffered from Asperger's syndrome, and he had an incredible memory. He memorized pi, the number. He memorized pi to about 10,000 decimal places. He holds the world's record for memorizing pi. And in fact, he had to have a team of people checking him as he rattled off all the indices of pi. It took him several hours to recite all the digits. So I asked him, how is it possible, Mr. Tennant, that you can memorize pi to 10,000 decimal places? And he says, well, he associates a color with each of the 10,000 digits. You see, he also suffers from synesthesia. When he hears a number in his mind, he sees a color. Because the wiring of his brain, there's a mismatch. And then I asked him, well, how do you memorize 10,000 colors? And he said, well, I really don't know. It just comes to me. And that's how he memorized pi to 10,000 decimal places. Now, what this means is that your brain also has that same capability. There's several theories that I mentioned in my book about how it's possible the brain can do this, but genetically, we're not all that dissimilar. Therefore, if this guy can do it, has a photographic memory, then it's possible that you too might have a photographic memory, but it's been turned off. So when you interview these people with photographic memory, they sometimes say that they wish they didn't have it because all these totally extraneous, unimportant facts come hitting at them, totally useless. One woman, for example, is a housewife in Los Angeles. She has a photographic memory. If you ask her, what were you doing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon 10 years ago to the very day, she'll tell you what she was doing 10 years ago at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And she says it's like having split memory. It's like one part of your brain reliving a day 10 years ago, and the other part of your brain seeing everything that you are seeing now. Totally useless, she said. So in other words, maybe nature mercifully gave us the ability to forget. Now, one theory that explains this is that we used to think that forgetting occurred naturally, that with time, memories degrade. There's a new theory out there which kind of shocked me when I heard it. And that theory is that your brain records memories, and then your brain has to deliberately erase memories as well. Erasing is just as complicated as remembering. Erasing doesn't occur naturally at all. Now, if that's true, then these people have a broken erase mechanism. Their brain has forgotten how to erase. Their brain just memorizes everything in sight. If this theory is true, this means that you too may have this ability to remember everything that your senses record. But in these individuals, in fact, in most people, it's been turned off. However, in these people, it's broken, and therefore they memorize everything. Okay, well, let's move right on. And in fact, if you want to know more about this, get a copy of my book, The Future of the Mind. I have a whole chapter on things like this. And let's now take a short commercial break. Once again, you are listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129.
This is Science Fantastic. For more information on this and other great talk programs, go to talkradionetwork.com.
Hi, this is DV Kidd. My new book, Taking Politics Out of Solutions, is now available. Why is it nothing changes no matter who you vote for? My book covers the most critical issues eating this country alive, as well as the solutions that are already there that Congress and the agenda-driven media don't want you to know. From the disaster of our economy, why we will never have economic freedom until the Fed is abolished, trade, the meltdown underway called Obamacare, the truth about Social Security and Medicare, and the fraudulent ratification of the 17th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, a very huge issue that affects every American. The answers and solutions are in my book, All Americans Need to Read, because the worst is coming at us like a freight train. To order, go to www.newswithviews.com.
You wouldn't dare build a house without a blueprint, and neither should you invest without a plan. Hi, Sam Sorbo here. My good friends at Landmark Capital specialize in tailor-made portfolios called Your Financial Blueprint. Let Landmark Capital show you how to control your retirement and safeguard your money from government seizure, protect it from an upcoming recession, and maximize your financial growth in case of inflation. Landmark Capital can show you how to put physical metals, gold and silver, into your IRA or 401k and take physical possession today. Your 401k IRA is a ticking time bomb. The government's racked up our debt to $18 trillion, and there's currently $18.2 trillion in retirement. 12 different countries have already seized their citizens' assets like bank and retirement accounts, and it can happen here any day now, according to the Federal Reserve. Get the facts. Call 855-747-5947, 855-747-5947, or find them at landmarkgold.com. Call 855-747-5947 or visit landmarkgold.com.
Hi folks, GetTheTea.com is the place where the popular Life Change tea calls home. But did you know Get the Tea is also where you can purchase GMO-free organic supplements? You can read about their potent power at GetTheTea.com. Also, they just added a YouTube channel called Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Education about our health can be a life change. Maybe that's why our famous tea is called Life Change Tea. Learn about the trees for life. Our supplements have no fillers, no wheat, no rice, no garbage. And our tea is wow to the body. Make a conscious health change. Educate yourself on the most powerful essence of life, which is your health. You want more? Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Or visit our YouTube channel at Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. And don't forget our fabulous mild detox tea at getthetea.com.
Here is Professor Michio Kaku.
Welcome back to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. On Science Fantastic, we're throwing the lines open in this hour, and you can get on Science Fantastic. So let's take the next listener phone call.
Yes, sir. I was listening to your show. I'm kind of a first-time listener, and it's fascinating. I love science. My question would be, how does the creator, intelligent design, or the beginning of the world, or God, if you will, fit in to science, and how you feel about that?
Well, that's a big question, so let me try to break it down. First of all, Galileo himself, the founder of modern science, was asked that question, and he answered it as follows. He says the purpose of the church is to determine how to get to heaven, and the purpose of science is to determine how the heavens go. So in other words, they're different. The purpose of the church is to determine how to go to heaven. In other words, ethics, behavior, how to act like a good person. That's what the church is all about. And science is about how the heavens go. That is, it's about natural law. It's about the laws of the universe. Now, the problem occurs when scientists begin to pontificate about ethics, or when religious people begin to pontificate about natural law. That's where the problem occurs. because as long as you keep the two distinct, realize that science does not tell you what is a good thing or a bad thing. That's what society tells you. Where do you draw the line between a felony and a misdemeanor? What is good? What is bad? These are things that society has to democratically decide upon. However, in science, we talk about things that occur in natural law throughout the universe. What does a felony or a misdemeanor mean on another star system? So you begin to see that they're two different domains, so they're not necessarily in opposition to each other at all. Now, then Einstein was asked the question, do you believe in God? And he says, well, let's break it down. There are two kinds of God. First, there's the personal God, the God that you pray to, the God that parts the waters. And he said that he did not necessarily believe in a personal God because we're talking about the creator of the universe. Does the creator of the universe really care about killing the Philistines or whether or not you pray to get a bicycle for Christmas? I think perhaps God has more important things to think about. And then Einstein said he believed in the God of Spinoza. That is the God of reason, harmony, the God of order, beauty, simplicity. Because you see, the universe didn't have to be this way. The universe could have been random. It could have been chaotic. It could have been a jumble of random things. But here we are, living in a gorgeous universe with natural laws that could be figured out by human beings. And he thought that, well, that's the God that he believed in. Okay, well, moving right along, let's take the next listener phone call.
Yes, my name is Lou Cooley. I'm calling because I have a question that perplexes me. How can the universe be in nothing? The universe has to be in something, in my thought, and that has to be in something. It's like it's stranger than fiction. It's so big you can't realize it, and the universe is so small you can't realize it. Can you explain that idea that I'm talking about? Thank you.
Well, you asked one of the deepest questions, a question that theologians have asked. For example, some theologians thought that the oceans, no matter how far they seem to be, are sitting upon a turtle. And the whole universe is basically a disk sitting upon a cosmic turtle. Then the question is, well, what is the turtle sitting on? Well, the turtle is sitting upon another turtle. And how many turtles are there? Well, there's an infinite number of turtles going all the way down. And then the question is, well, what supports an infinite number of turtles? St. Thomas Aquinas was asked this question, and he was asked the question, is there a first mover? Well, why do objects move? Objects move because they're pushed by something. But what pushes that? Well, something else had to push that. But then what pushed that? Well, something else had to push that. And then St. Thomas Aquinas asked himself the question, well, if there's an infinite number of pushers, what is pushing that? And so you go crazy trying to think about this. Is there an infinite number of layers of existence? Well, science simply says the following. Well, first of all, science itself evolves. Back in the 1920s, for example, astronomers thought that the universe was the Milky Way galaxy. That's it. Period. End of story. If you ask an astronomer back in the 1920s, how big is the universe anyway? They would say, oh, that's easy. The universe is roughly 100,000 light years across. That's the size of the Milky Way from one edge to the other. That's the universe. But then Edwin Hubble comes along and finds out there are other universes out there. Billions of other universes. And so we're back to the turtle question. How many turtles are there? Now, the short answer is we don't really know at the present time. The Hubble Space Telescope can see 100 billion galaxies out there, each galaxy containing 100 billion stars. And so how many stars are out there? Well, the number of stars we can see with a telescope is 100 billion times 100 billion. That's an incredibly large number, but you can actually quantify it in terms of how big the universe, the visible universe, is. And then the question is, what's beyond the visible universe? And again, the short answer is we don't know. However, let me give you two theories. One theory is that the universe perhaps is just infinite. It just goes on forever, endlessly. That is a solution of Einstein's equation. Another solution of Einstein's equation says that the universe is a ball of some sort. It's a four-dimensional ball. And it's a bubble. And what is the bubble doing? It's floating in a larger ocean. An ocean of turtles? No, it's an ocean of hyperspace, 11-dimensional hyperspace. And so one theory, coming from string theory, says that our universe is a bubble. We live on the skin of the bubble. The bubble is expanding. There are other bubbles out there, and the arena that the universe exists in, that floats in, is 11-dimensional hyperspace. Dimensions beyond comprehension. And it's impossible to explain all of string theory in just a few minutes. Get a copy of some of my books, Hyperspace, Parallel Worlds. I have a whole discussion about string theory and what is 11-dimensional hyperspace. Okay, well, moving right along, let's take the next listener phone call.
Hello, Doctor. I'm calling from Clearwater, Florida. Just thinking about black holes. Is it possible that the black holes are the garbage cans of the universe? Thank you.
Well, you're exactly right. Some people think that black holes are the ultimate Roche motel. Everything checks in, but nothing checks out. So that is a plausible theory. However, it's not satisfying because when a star disappears into a black hole, and we see this happening now with our telescopes and sensors, you kind of wonder, well, what happened to the star? Is it just eaten up? Is there a garbage can there? And is there another side to the garbage can? Well, the short answer is we don't know, because even though Einstein's theory predicts the existence of black holes, even though we see these black holes in outer space, we have to use a higher set of equations, because Einstein's equations break down at the center of a black hole. They're useless. Einstein's equations simply say that the gravity at the center of a black hole is infinite. Now, what does that mean? That doesn't help you at all. We physicists don't believe in infinite energy. What it really means is that Einstein's theory has simply broken down. And again, that's where string theory comes in, because string theory goes right through the center of a black hole. Now, is there another universe on the other side of a black hole? That's one theory. Watch the movie Interstellar, starring Matthew McConaughey. And the people consulting for that movie were Caltech physicists, colleagues of mine. And they use the latest in terms of computer projections and computer simulations to simulate exactly what happens when you go through the event horizon of a black hole and head toward the center of a black hole. Now, of course, this is Hollywood. And what do they find at the center of a black hole? A gateway to another universe. That is a solution of Einstein's equations. And again, do we have the technology to go through the black hole? And the answer is no. So how did they get away with it in the movie? Okay, well, how did they get away with it in the movie? I'll answer that question after the commercial break. In other words, how do you go to the other side of the universe? Let's take a short commercial break. Once again, you are listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku.
You're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Professor Michio Kaku.
Welcome back to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. On Science Fantastic, we explore the cutting edge of science, the very edge of what is known about this great universe of ours. And if you want to be part of the excitement, if you want to be part of Science Fantastic, then give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129. You'll get a recording. Simply leave your name, the call letters of the radio station you're listening to, and the city you're calling from. And perhaps you can have your thoughts heard on over 100 radio stations that carry Science Fantastic. And also, if you want to know more about what I'm up to, go to my website, mkaku.org. mkaku.org is the website address. And you can also go to my Facebook site. We have 3 million fans on Facebook. And you can go to my Twitter account, and we have 500,000 people taking my feed on Twitter. Okay, well, without further ado, I'll get into the phone calls. However, let me then answer the question that was raised previously. And that is, what lies on the other side of a black hole? The short answer is we don't know. Einstein's equations break down at that point. String theory, however, does go through the black hole. One possible solution, I'm not saying it's the only one, one possible solution is that there's a gateway, a wormhole, a dimensional portal connecting that universe to another universe. And then how do you get the energy necessary to drill a hole in space and time? In the movie, they get around that. In the movie, it turns out that our descendants, our future people of the future do have the technology to create a wormhole to go back into the past and meet us. That's how they get around that very clever trick. How do you create a wormhole through time? And the answer is you have to wait for your descendants to create a wormhole so they can visit you in the past. A very clever way that Hollywood has of getting around that problem. Okay, well, moving right along, let's take the next listener phone call.
Yes, Professor. This is Bob in Chicago. Curious. If you were traveling at the speed of light in a ship, or even on a carpet, a magic carpet, would your mass be infinite once you reach the speed of light? Thank you.
Well, you ask a very interesting question, because if you read Einstein's original paper of 1905, he says that as you approach the speed of light, all sorts of bizarre, strange things begin to happen. First of all, time slows down. That freaks people out. But hey, we measure this every day with our satellites now. Einstein was right. The faster you move, the slower time beats. And that's why your GPS system works. That's why your cell phone works, for God's sake. If it wasn't for Einstein, your cell phones wouldn't work. And you get heavier. In fact, if you hit the speed of light, you have infinite mass. So how do you get around that? Well, you get around that very simply. You cannot reach the speed of light. Now, if you could reach the speed of light, which is not possible, your mass would be infinite. And of course, that's silly. Who ever heard of infinite mass? And so it simply means that Einstein's equations have been verified at sublight velocities. And at the speed of light, you have, of course, light beams. And light beams obey a different set of equations. Light beams have zero rest mass. Therefore, they do not have infinite mass at all. Some people ask that question. Well, if light travels at the speed of light, and if your mass is infinite at the speed of light, then how come light does not have infinite mass? And the answer is very simple. Light has zero rest mass, and therefore it cannot have infinite mass at all. And so when Einstein came out with this theory, of course, he was hit from all sides. A lot of people didn't believe him. In fact, even Adolf Hitler commissioned teams of scientists to try to tear down Einstein's theory. And of course, they all failed, because Einstein's theory has been experimentally verified. And the simplest verification of Einstein's theory is your cell phone. Okay, well, we're going to have to take yet another short commercial break. Once again, you are listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129. And give us a call, because perhaps your thoughts will be heard on 100 radio stations that carry Science Fantastic. Give us a call. 866-323-2129 is the number to call.
You're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. For more information on this and other great talk programs, go to talkradionetwork.com.
Spread the word. Now there is powerful nutritional support for migraine sufferers. It's estimated that 35 million people suffer with migraines. Are you or a family member one of them? Well, now there is MigRelief by Akeso Health Sciences. MigRelief is a safe and healthy, non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address the nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Just take 2 capsules a day of MigRelief for 3 months and see the amazing difference it can make in your life, or get your money back. No questions asked. There's nothing to lose. Akeso Health Sciences MigRelief has been helping people just like you for 20 years. Try MigRelief and get your life back risk-free with just one call. Call 1-800-MIG-7354, 1-800-MIG-7354, or go to MIG911.com.
You wouldn't dare build a house without a blueprint, and neither should you invest without a plan. Hi, Sam Sorbo here. My good friends at Landmark Capital specialize in tailor-made portfolios called Your Financial Blueprint. Let Landmark Capital show you how to control your retirement and safeguard your money from government seizure, protect it from an upcoming recession, and maximize your financial growth in case of inflation. Landmark Capital can show you how to put physical metals, gold and silver, into your IRA or 401k and take physical possession today. Your 401k IRA is a ticking time bomb. The government's racked up our debt to $18 trillion, and there's currently $18.2 trillion in retirement. 12 different countries have already seized their citizens' assets like bank and retirement accounts, and it can happen here any day now, according to the Federal Reserve. Get the facts. Call 855-747-5947, 855-747-5947, or find them at landmarkgold.com. Call 855-747-5947 or visit landmarkgold.com.
Hello. My name is Roy Masters. I'm an English veteran who's been witness to history and proud to become an American citizen. Because in America, free thought was encouraged and being truthful mattered more than being nice. My America was truly politically incorrect in all the best ways, which is why we were blessed. But things have changed, and Americans don't think American anymore. Even though I still speak with an English accent, my heart thinks American. My voice speaks American. And that is freedom. Please join me on my daily radio show Advice Line, Monday through Friday, and I will help you to reclaim our country. Let me help you find the courage to think and speak American again. Please download my radio show app, available now at the Apple App Store and Android Google Play. Thank you.
The Foundation of Human Understanding is a 501c3 church.
Science Fantastic.
Welcome back to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Give us a call. The lines are open. Ask that question that you've always wanted to ask and do it on national radio. Give us a call at 866-323-2129. All we ask is that you leave your name, call letters of the radio station, and the city you're calling from, and perhaps you can get on Science Fantastic. And so once again, the lines are open, so give us a call. Let's take the next listener phone call.
Thank you, Professor, for taking my call. This is Charlie, 102.3 WGOW, Chattanooga, Tennessee. And my question is about the moon. We all know, well, I guess we do, we all know what the moon does for our planet. All right. At one point, you said that, or they said, that something hit the Earth and knocked off a chunk, and that became our moon. All right. Which came first, the moon or the water, the ocean or the moon? Thank you very much.
Well, you ask a very interesting question, and that is, well, if the moon was blown out of the Earth, which seems likely, then which came first, the oceans or the moon? Well, we're not sure about this because, of course, no one was there to photograph what was happening. But we think that the moon was blown out of the Earth roughly 4.1 billion years ago. Now, the Earth itself is 4.5 billion years old. That's the age of the sun, by the way. The sun, the planets, all condensed out of the same cloud roughly 4.5 billion years ago. We know this by dating meteorites, some of the oldest objects in the solar system, and we also know the age of the sun. The sun is a gigantic hydrogen bomb. We know almost everything about hydrogen bombs because the Pentagon has been funding generously physicists for decades. And we can actually gauge the age of the sun because we know the rate at which the sunshine it falls on the planet Earth. So as a consequence, we're able to know that the Earth is roughly 4.5 billion years. And then the astronauts brought back moon rock. And looking at the moon rocks, we realize that the rock of the moon is very similar, almost identical to the rock found here on the planet Earth. And by looking at Newton's laws of motion, we can actually run the videotape backwards and rule out or rule in different scenarios of how the moon was created. All these theories coalesce into one theory, showing that the moon was probably blown out roughly 4.1 billion years ago, plus or minus, of course. Now, the oceans, we're not quite sure where the oceans came from. One theory is that comets and asteroids brought most of the water to the planet Earth. But as you can imagine, even if the Earth had a primitive ocean, a very primitive ocean 4.1 billion years ago, and an asteroid the size of Mars were to hit the Earth and blow the moon into space, whatever ocean we had would vaporize. And so the answer to your question is perhaps the moon was born first, and the oceans came later. But again, we think it was a process. We think it took millions of years for the oceans to form, and we're still learning more about the solar system. Okay, well, let's take another short commercial break. You are listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Give us a call. Oh, right. Okay, once again, give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129. All we ask is that you leave your name, call letters of the radio station, and the city you're calling from, and perhaps you can be on Science Fantastic. So, give us a call.
Yes, Professor Kaku can help you with your homework. He can even help you with your kids' homework, but only if you ask. You're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku.
Welcome back to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Once again, the lines are open. This is your chance to ask that question that's always been bothering you. Let's say it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and there you are all alone, and all of a sudden you have this brainstorm, and you just got to talk to somebody, but hey, there's no one to talk to. Well, you can talk to me. At 4 o'clock in the morning, yes, you can give us a call at 866-323-2129. You'll get a recording, leave your name, call letters to the radio station, and the city you're calling from, and perhaps you can be on Science Fantastic. So, give us a call. Let's take now the next listener phone call.
Professor, this is Julia. I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee, listening to WGOW Radio 102.3. My question, cell phones. Say, for instance, the astronauts at the space station. Can they take a cell phone with them and call home? Just wondering. Thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful day.
Well, you ask an interesting question because at first you may say to yourself, no, come on. I mean, they're in outer space. They're 300 miles above the surface of the Earth, traveling at 18,000 miles per hour. How can they possibly take a phone call? But then you ask yourself another question. Well, exactly where does your cell phone connect to? Cell phones are ubiquitous. You can go pretty much anywhere where we have civilization and you can take out your cell phone. So exactly what happens to your cell phone when you make a phone call? Well, first of all, chances are there's a microwave tower outside someplace, a microwave tower that then receives and sends signals from perhaps millions of cell phones in a metropolitan area. So when you're outside, you can link to a microwave tower. Second, there's Wi-Fi. You could be in a restaurant, for example, and there's a small little Wi-Fi unit, perhaps no more than a box that's like 6 inches wide, and has an antenna. And it picks up and sends messages to your cell phone, and that little box in turn is connected to a server someplace. Now, in outer space, there are not going to be any microwave towers. Therefore, that's not going to be how you're going to communicate. But there could be Wi-Fi there. In other words, there could be a little box with an antenna that simply picks up your cell phone message and then beams it down to the planet Earth because it's in radio communication with mission control. And so your cell phone call may be rerouted through mission control. Now, is it already set up this way? That I don't know. You'll have to talk to an astronaut or talk to NASA about that. But it wouldn't take that much. It wouldn't take that much, really, to connect a cell phone on the space shuttle to a Wi-Fi unit, which then communicates to the planet Earth. Okay, well, moving right along now, let's take the next listener phone call.
Professor Kaku, this is William, Radio 970, Portland, Oregon. My question is there a homosexual gene that a person can inherit even though there is no history of homosexuality? Thank you very much.
Well, you ask a very controversial question, and there's only a limited amount of reproducible, testable, falsifiable data on this question. In fact, I interviewed one of the leading biologists who has tried to find the so-called gay gene. In fact, he announced several years ago that he thought he was hot on the trail of a gay gene, but since then, other researchers have not been able to reproduce his results. Now, we know there is some genetic component to it, but it's not 100%. In other words, there's not just one gay gene. It turns out if you look at identical twins, you can have one twin who is gay and the other one who is not. If it was simply a single gene that determined whether or not you were gay, then of course you wouldn't have that. However, you can look at the genetics and you see that, well, there could be a genetic link. That is, if you are gay, then yeah, there's a slight elevated chance that perhaps your siblings are also gay as well. And so, to summarize, there's no proof one way or the other as to whether or not there is a gay gene. They're just theories. One theory, for example, says that perhaps in the fetus, is bathed with hormones which then determine whether or not the brain is going to be male or female. You see, we are born female. We're all born female, but then we have hormones hitting us in the womb which then determine whether or not we are male or female. So you can be genetically male, but your brain tells you otherwise depending upon the amount of hormones that you get in the fetus. But again, let me stress again, these are just theories. We have no definitive proof one way or the other, even though people have tried to look for a gay gene. And in fact, I even had one of the leading individuals, Professor Hammer, who claimed to have found a gay gene. So at the present time, it's up in the air. Well, I'm afraid that's it for Science Fantastic. We've run out of time. But once again, if you want to get on Science Fantastic, you can always give us a call at 866 323-2129. Or if you want to know what I'm up to, just go to my website, mkaku.org, mkaku.org. You can go to my Facebook site. We have 3 million fans on Facebook. We have 500,000 people who take our Twitter feed. And if you want to find out what all the excitement is about, then give us a call. Once again, the hotline number is 866-323-2129. And pick up a copy of my latest book. It's called The Future of the Mind, now in paperback form. The Future of the Mind. So once again, give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129.
Go ahead, try to stop him. But be warned, Professor Kaku is really smart. Like, whoa, this guy is smart. You're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Black holes, the cosmos, space, and time travel, medicine, robotics, science, and technology. Professor Michio Kaku, theoretical physicist, graduated from Harvard University's summa cum laude and first in his physics class. Received his PhD in physics from the University of California at Berkeley. And now, professor of physics at City University of New York for 30 years. His goal? To complete Einstein's dream of a theory of everything, to derive an equation, to summarize all the physical laws of the universe. The co-founder of string field theory, author of the international bestsellers Hyperspace, Visions, and Parallel Worlds, and voted as one of the 100 smartest people in New York, profiling the latest cutting-edge developments in science, which revolutionize our world and touch our lives. Now, Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku.
This is Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. On Science Fantastic, we profile the amazing, jaw-dropping scientific discoveries which are revolutionizing our world and touching our lives. And in this hour, we're going to go to the very limits of the universe. We're going to be talking about parallel universes. We're going to be talking about starships. And we're going to be bringing on a theoretical physicist talking about the recent developments in science. Our special guest today for this hour is Professor Paul Davies, winner of the $1 million Templeton Prize. He's a professor of theoretical physics at Arizona State University, and he's also the director of the Beyond Center for Fundamental Concepts in Science at Arizona State, author of a number of great books, including How to Build a Time Machine, The Eerie Silence, Cosmic Jackpot, Why Our Universe is Just Right for Life. And we're going to be talking about some of the work that he's been doing on things like gravity waves, parallel universes. Did you know that we can now conceive of building devices in outer space, gravity wave detectors, that'll detect the instant of creation itself and maybe give us evidence that the baby universe is connected with an umbilical cord to a parent universe, which would explain the origin of the Big Bang itself. Think about that. Think about building a starship. We're going to talk today with Dr. Paul Davies about the first practical design for a starship that could actually be built in just a few decades to reach the nearby stars in 20 years' time. A workable starship. Not the size of the Enterprise. Of course, it has to be scaled down. It's the size of a postage stamp, driven by a bank of laser beams blasting it to 20% the speed of light. And then we're going to talk about the movies with Dr. Paul Davies. We're going to talk about the theory of everything, which won an Academy Award. Movies like Interstellar, talking about time travel and black holes. Movies like The Imitation Game, about the origin of artificial intelligence and the computer revolution. We're going to bring on Dr. Paul Davies of Arizona State University, a theoretical physicist, talking about time travel, space warps, higher dimensions, and building a starship. So stay tuned.
You're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. For more information on this and other great talk programs, go to talkradionetwork.com.
Hi, this is DV Kidd. My new book, Taking Politics Out of Solutions, is now available. Why is it nothing changes no matter who you vote for? My book covers the most critical issues eating this country alive, as well as the solutions that are already there that Congress and the agenda-driven media don't want you to know. From the disaster of our economy, why we will never have economic freedom until the Fed is abolished, trade, the meltdown underway called Obamacare, the truth about Social Security and Medicare, and the fraudulent ratification of the 17th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. A very huge issue that affects every American. The answers and solutions are in my book, All Americans Need to Read, because the worst is coming at us like a freight train. To order, go to www.newswithviews.com.
Spread the word. Now there is powerful nutritional support for migraine sufferers. It's estimated that 35 million people suffer with migraines. Are you or a family member one of them? Well, now there is MigRelief by Akeso Health Sciences. MigRelief is a safe and healthy, non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address the nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Just take 2 capsules a day of MigRelief for 3 months and see the amazing difference it can make in your life, or get your money back. No questions asked. There's nothing to lose. Akeso Health Sciences MigRelief has been helping people just like you for 20 years. Try MigRelief and get your life back risk-free with just one call. Call 1-800-MIG-7354, 1-800-MIG-7354, or go to MIG911.com.
Having a place to go after school will make you a better student. Having an outlet to express yourself will make you a better artist. Having something to do together will make you a better family. At The Y, we're helping build better friends, listeners, writers, swimmers, scientists, and musicians, one chance at a time. Give the gift of opportunity. Donate to The Y at ymca.net/give. The Y, for a better us.
Hello, here I am, Roy Masters, 55 years on talk radio and still saving lives. Please continue helping the Foundation of Human Understanding by simply donating $19.95 per month. Paying it forward plan will continue saving lives into the years to come. I'm a pioneer in helping our troops to overcome the ravages of PTSD without drugs. Go to FHU.com and then click on the donation page. That's FHU.com.
The Foundation of Human Understanding is a 501c3 church.
This is Science Fantastic.
Welcome back to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. In this hour, we're going to bring on one of the world's leading theoretical physicists talking about Einstein, talking about dark matter, gravity waves, talking about the movies. With us today is Professor Paul Davies. He's written a number of great books, about 25 of them, I think, by last count. He's written books like How to Build a Time Machine, The Eerie Silence, The Cosmic Jackpot, Why the Universe is Just Right for Life. He's a professor at Arizona State University in Tucson, and he's the director of the Beyond Center for Fundamental Concepts in Science. So, Paul, glad you could be on, once again, Science Fantastic. Okay. Well, the first question that we always ask our guests is, how did you as a youth first get interested in science?
Well, I grew up in London in the post-war years of great austerity, and in a single word, boredom. There was very little to do. We didn't have any money. The toys were scarce, didn't go on vacation. And so for me, science was a form of escapism. I realized that just by looking up at the sky, I could enter a wonderland that most people didn't notice. And I got interested in also atoms and things unseen, inner space as well as outer space. And all this before the age of 11. I like to tell journalists that my career in the direction of astrophysics and cosmology was propelled by none other than Margaret Thatcher, later the Prime Minister of the UK, who gave me a star atlas when I was 16. I still have it with her signature in it, and that was a prize. She happened to be the Member of Parliament in the area where I went to high school. And so that's a nice little story. But already by that age, I was determined to make a career in theoretical physics. I should say, I was the only one in the family. My parents thought I was a bit of a crackpot, and my brother and sister did completely different things. I'm the only scientist in the family, and probably the only one ever likely to be.
I see. And what was it about theoretical physics that drew you into the subject? Was there a book, a concept, a role model? What was it that drew you in the direction of theoretical physics?
There was a role model, actually. It was Fred Hoyle, who was a famous and somewhat controversial British cosmologist and astronomer at Cambridge University, but he was also very well known for his science fiction. During my formative years, in my youth, he was responsible, for example, for a TV series, a drama called A for Andromeda, which was all about SETI, about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, about a signal coming from the Andromeda galaxy with the recipe for building a living organism. All this stuff was really fascinating to me. But he wrote a particular book, I think it was called The Universe or Astronomy Now or something, I can't remember exactly what. And I read that in my mid-teens, and I thought, well, he was somebody who could write engagingly, but also address really fundamental questions. And I've always been interested in the deep issues of existence, not so much the technicalities here and there, although you have to deal with those if you're a professional scientist, but I've always been compelled by asking the great questions like, how did the universe come to exist, and are we alone, and how will it all end? What am I doing here? Those have been the things that fascinated me. So I was naturally drawn to big question subject areas like cosmology.
And now that you mention it, when I was a child, I read I guess it was called The Black Cloud by Fred Hoyle, and it was an intelligent cloud, a gigantic cloud in outer space that was intelligent, and it had a mission to find out the origin of the universe. But I read at the end of the book, and of course, it doesn't give the answer.
Right.
Well, what did happen at the beginning of the universe, right?
Well, you see, Fred Hoyle was famous for championing the alternative to the Big Bang theory. In fact, he was the one who coined the term Big Bang in the early 50s as a term of derision. For people who thought the universe popped up all in one go. He wanted the universe to have existed forever and ever, and as it expands, for matter to be continually created instead of in one great bang as time goes along. Now, this was very popular in the 50s and 60s, but by the end of the 60s, it had fallen out of favor, largely because of the discovery of the heat radiation from the Big Bang, the fading afterglow of that first initial burst. And that radiation would be very hard to explain if you suppose that the universe had always existed in more or less its present form.
Yeah, but still, I think Fred Hoyle should have won the Nobel Prize for nucleosynthesis, but according to legend, one of the reasons why he did not get the Nobel Prize was because he criticized the Nobel Prize committee for bypassing a woman, Jocelyn Bell. And,
right. Now, Fred was a very controversial figure, both within Cambridge University, where he had a number of detractors, a number of supporters, but nationally and internationally. So he would champion various causes, some of them worthy, some of them, frankly, off the wall. And so at the time when the Nobel Prize was awarded to his collaborators for work on nucleosynthesis, that is how the chemical elements get cooked inside stars, that's where they come from. He worked out a lot of the details of that in the late 40s and early 50s. At the time that Nobel Prize was awarded, Fred was saying that many of the diseases that we're familiar with, like influenza, for example, the viruses for those are coming from space, not from other species or other individuals, but coming down from the sky, and that was considered beyond the pale. So Fred was never afraid of championing causes that were against the mainstream, swimming against the tide, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And a lot of people don't realize he didn't retire. He actually resigned his chair at Cambridge University in 1972. I was there at the time, and he sort of stormed off and lived life as a semi-recluse in the northwest of England in the mountains.
Is that right? I didn't know that part of the story. Okay, well, let's just jump right into some of the big stories of the past few months. Gravity waves. That hit the news a while ago. Einstein predicted them to exist in 1916, and it took 100 years for physics to finally catch up with Einstein. So tell us a little bit about gravity waves. Why the big fuss about them?
A very fitting story, I think, that pretty much exactly the centenary of Einstein's prediction of gravity waves, they were finally detected. Now, this is a subject dear to my heart. I first learned about it in those early days in Fred Hoare's Institute in Cambridge in the early 70s, when a guy called Joe Weber, who in those days worked at the University of Maryland, claimed to have detected these gravity waves using a big cylinder of metal that was shaking and vibrating in an otherwise unaccountable manner. And for a while it looked like this discovery had already happened, but then the weight of evidence seemed to be against that. That looked to be like a false alarm. And a whole new generation of gravitational wave detectors was built based on using laser beams rather than metal bars. But it's the same general principle. Our listeners are probably thinking, well, what the hell is a gravity wave? And the answer is, I think everyone's familiar with radio waves. They better be, because that's how they're hearing us. Radio waves are electromagnetic waves, which means that they are electricity and magnetism rippling out across space. The same thing can happen with gravitation, whereas for electromagnetic waves you have electric currents wiggling up and down, say, in an antenna. All you need to make gravitational waves are masses wiggling up and down. So any movement of a mass will do. But because gravitation is such a feeble force, you need stupendous quantities of mass moving around in order to generate a detectable gravitational wave. So you have to think astronomy, say black holes. Collisions of black holes is ideal, collisions of neutron stars. All these things were identified decades ago as likely sources of these gravity waves. And for, 30 or 40 years, physicists have been searching for them using these laser-based systems. And finally, with a bit of an upgrade a year ago, one of these detectors called LIGO, Laser Interferometer Gravitational Observatory, LIGO, Advanced LIGO, upgraded LIGO, finally announced that it had detected the merger of two black holes in a galaxy far, far away a long, long time ago. Gravitational waves, like electromagnetic waves, travel at the speed of light. And so they ripple out across space at that speed. And it's a huge triumph, not just for Einstein's theory, but because it opens up a new window on the universe.
Now, some people say that the next generation of these detectors will be in outer space, like LISA, Laser Interferometry Space Antenna. The European Union is also thinking of having space-based gravity wave detectors capable of detecting radiation from the instant of creation itself. Some people think that maybe we can run the videotape backwards and get radiation from before the Big Bang, or at least check some of the theories of before the Big Bang, and that would give us the first clue as to what happened before Genesis. So what are your thoughts about the next generation of gravity wave detectors, which might just be powerful enough to pick up radiation from the instant of the Big Bang, and therefore give us evidence as to what happened before the Big Bang? What are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is that gravitational waves are much better for that purpose than electromagnetic waves, because they go through everything. The problem, if you try to look back at the Big Bang with electromagnetic waves, like heat and light, is you get blocked off at about 380,000 years after the Big Bang. You can't see back before that because it's like a luminous cloud. For the same reason you can't see into the middle of the sun. You just see the surface of the sun. But gravitational waves could come through all that luminous fog, and so in principle we can detect gravitational waves from the very earliest moments of the universe because, as I explained, they're produced just by large amounts of matter sloshing around, and there was plenty of that going on in the early rumble of the Big Bang. And about a year ago, there was actually another false alarm, an announcement that evidence for such gravitational waves had been discovered in an experiment done at the South Pole that looked at the twisting of light coming from the Big Bang under the influence of what was supposed to be gravitational waves from the earliest moment. That's gone away, but in principle we could detect such things. It's going to be difficult. It will need probably space-based detectors, and all this is going to be very expensive, but there's no particular reason we can't peer right back. And then you raise this fascinating issue about, everyone wants to know, well, what happened before the Big Bang? Was it the origin of time? Was there nothing before the Big Bang? Or is the Big Bang simply the beginning of our universe embedded in some much bigger system, sometimes called the multiverse? And if so, what happened before the Big Bang? And could any trace of physical processes that characterize that prior epoch have survived the Big Bang and propagate to us today? And that very much depends on whose theory you like, and there's flavor of the month theories, and no doubt in another 10 years there'll be different theories around. But at the end of the day, you've got to do the experiments to put a constraint on the theorist's imagination.
Now, some people say that the presence of alternate universes, parallel universes, higher dimensions can never be tested because we live in our universe, and how do you go outside the universe? But if it's possible to pick up gravity waves from the instant of creation and then perhaps run the videotape a little bit backwards before the instant of creation, isn't it therefore a testable idea? A testable idea that some of these theories like inflation or string theory is a testable concept that we can actually pick up what the universe might have looked at like before creation. It's testable. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's weakly testable. So I think everyone's fascinated by the notion that there could be like other universes, either existing before our own or in parallel with our own, sort of out there, beyond the edges of our universe and inaccessible, or even in quantum physics, which is very weird, the possibility of parallel universes that are actually, in some sense, very close to us, but inaccessible because of the way the rules of quantum mechanics work. And then the question is, how can we ever test the notion of something that almost by definition is inaccessible to us? And there are some weak tests that one can consider. Now, you've been talking about directly testing, that is, say, picking up gravitational waves that might emanate from some epoch before the Big Bang, and that would be very nice if you could do that. But even if that is not possible, it may be possible to somehow get evidence that there are other realities, other worlds, just from statistical means. And you mentioned a book of mine, which confusingly had two titles. It was called Cosmic Jackpot, and then in the paperback edition, The Goldilocks Enigma. But it's basically about why is the universe just right for life. And the way that works is that I think most scientists are aware of the fact that the laws that govern our universe can't be changed by very much, and there still be life here and observers like us to reflect on the meaning of it all. That there are certain parameters in basic physics which need to be very close to their actual values in order for life to emerge. So we do seem to live in a curiously bio-friendly universe. It looks almost like it's cooked up to bring forth life. And people want to know what's the explanation for that. And one possibility is that there's a vast multiplicity of universes with different laws, different values for these things.
Okay, Paul, we're going to have to take a short commercial break, but after the break we're going to continue our discussion of parallel universes and also starships. Is it possible that one day we can send microchips to the distant stars? Once again, you're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Our special guest today is renowned physicist, Professor Paul Davies of Arizona State University. So stay tuned.
You're listening to Science Fantastic.
Michio Kaku. In this hour, we're very delighted to have with us Professor Paul Davies of Arizona State University. He's the author of a number of great books in theoretical physics, including How to Build a Time Machine, The Eerie Silence, Cosmic Jackpot, Why the Universe is Just Right for Life. And he's the winner of the $1 Million Templeton Prize. And he's also the director of the Beyond Center for Fundamental Concepts in Science at Arizona State University. Well, Paul, when we last left off, we were talking about parallel universes, a subject that is dear to the hearts of science fiction writers, but most scientists would say, bah, humbug. How can you possibly measure something outside the universe, which by definition is outside our testable means? One possibility is to look for evidence of radiation, gravity waves, emitted at the instant of the Big Bang, but you also mentioned some other indirect ways that we might test this idea of a multiverse of universes. So could you elaborate now?
Yes, so in a favorite version of this other universes theory, the other worlds out there beyond the edges of our universe have different laws and different values for various fundamental constants. So, for example, if you don't like the mass of the electron, well, you go far enough over there, you'll get to a universe that has heavier electrons. Or if you're unhappy about the strength of the weak nuclear force, well, go in the other direction, you might find a universe that's got a weaker weak nuclear force, and so on. And the idea is that only in a tiny fraction of those would all those numbers come out just right for life, Goldilocks-like. And so, as we live in such a universe, is that the best explanation? Well, you can make a statistical prediction. You can say that if we imagine there's this very large assembly of universes and just randomly distributed laws and numbers like that, then there are certain things that we should find when we investigate more closely. That is, when we measure the values of various constants that appear in our universe, like the strength of the dark energy would be a very good one. This is the energy that is causing the universe to expand faster and faster and faster. It's got a very small value compared to what theory might predict. And one possible explanation for that is that if it were any larger, there could be no living thinking beings like us to worry about it. So this is like a statistical fluctuation. But from the theory of statistics, we know that fluctuations have certain properties. And so we could make predictions about, as we measure the value of this dark energy more precisely, what we should find in relation to the other things we know about the universe. So this is not a very strong, it's a rather indirect way of testing for the existence of other universes, but it is meaningful. Statistical tests are meaningful.
Okay, well, moving right along, let's talk about another headline that was recently made by Stephen Hawking and some billionaires who are backing the idea of building a starship. Not like the Enterprise, a gigantic device that would cost trillions of dollars, but parachute-sized starships the size of a chip, a computer chip that you would send by laser beams to Alpha Centauri. So I understand that you were also part of this. So tell us a little bit about the idea of building a starship with a parachute.
Right. The person who is financing this, Yuri Milner, is one of the great scientific philanthropists of our age. He's put immense sums of money into a number of projects, including SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. But I was with him and a group of other people about 2 or 3 weeks ago in California to talk about his latest brainchild, which is to, as you said, send a very small payload to the stars using laser beams to propel them. And so this is how this works. When we normally think of traveling to the stars, we do think of some sort of gigantic spaceship, but you just want to send a probe there. And because miniaturization has progressed in leaps and bounds, as we know from Earth-based technology, it's possible to imagine a space probe that weighs no more than 1 gram, that if you could accelerate it to 20% of the speed of light, would reach the nearest star, Alpha Centauri, in about 20 years. And when it gets there, the idea is that even such a small size, it could gather important data, maybe even imaging, and beam that back to Earth. Now, you wouldn't want to base everything just on one single little chip. So the idea would be to send a swarm of them, and maybe only a handful would get through. But that's enough to send back really important data within a person's lifetime, instead of the usual scenario you've got to wait thousands of years before anybody gets there. The biggest challenge here is how do you accelerate even a 1 gram payload to the speed of light? And the method that they seem to have homed in on is using ground-based lasers, very powerful. Most people don't think that light exerts a pressure, but it does. If you shine a light, say on your hand, you don't feel your hand being pushed away. But a very good illustration of the pressure of light is the tail of a comet. So when you look at
Paul, we're going to have to take yet another short commercial break, but after the break, we're going to continue a discussion of starships. Is it possible to send a starship the size of a postage stamp to the stars? Once again, you're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129. And once again, our special guest today is Professor Paul Davies of Arizona State University, talking about starships and parallel universes. So stay tuned.
You're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. For more information on this and other great talk programs, go to talkradionetwork.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
If you are one of the millions of people who get migraines, you need to know about MigRelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist who created MigRelief, the patented dietary supplement that addresses nutritional deficiencies in adults and children with migraines. Thousands of physicians and pharmacists recommend MigRelief.
Call 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
Having a place to go after school will make you a better student. Having an outlet to express yourself will make you a better artist. Having something to do together will make you a better family. At The Y, we're helping build better friends, listeners, writers, swimmers, scientists, and musicians, one chance at a time. Give the gift of opportunity. Donate to The Y at ymca.net/give. The Y, for a better us.
Hi folks, GetTheTea.com is the place where the popular Life Change Tea calls home. But did you know Get the Tea is also where you can purchase GMO-free organic supplements? You can read about their potent power at GetTheTea.com. Also, they just added a YouTube channel called Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Education about our health can be a life change. Maybe that's why our famous tea is called Life Change Tea. Learn about the trees for life. Our supplements have no fillers, no wheat, no rice, no garbage. And our tea is wow to the body. Make a conscious health change. Educate yourself on the most powerful essence of life, which is your health. You want more? Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Or visit our YouTube channel at Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. And don't forget our fabulous mild detox tea at getthetea.com.
Hello, I'm Roy Masters. In spite of the fact I dislike asking for financial support for my listeners, I realize the consequence of failing to do so. I will have denied my listeners the second chance to express the grace of paying forward the benefits they receive through my radio program and the Foundation of Human Understanding, the organization I founded over 50 years ago. Your support will make a vital difference with the pledge as little as 63 cents a day throughout this year. Consider a donation of $19.95 per month or whatever you can afford and help me help others, especially our returning heroes. So for the sake of the military and millions of broken lives, if you haven't done so already, pay it forward, the benefits which you've received throughout the years from one crying in the wilderness. Go to FHU.com/donate, FHU.com/donate. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
The Foundation of Human Understanding is a 501c3 church.
Welcome back to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Our special guest today is Professor Paul Davies, theoretical physicist at Arizona State University, winner of the $1 Million Templeton Prize, author of a number of great books, including The Eerie Silence and Cosmic Jackpot, Why Our Universe is Just Right for Life. Well, Paul, when we last left off, we were talking about a proposal to build a starship, a real starship, not the size of the Enterprise, but the size of a postage stamp that is propelled by laser beams. I went through the math, and it looks as if it's possible, but you have to have 100 gigawatts of power. That's 100 nuclear power plants generating energy to propel this object to the stars. So the question is this practical?
Well, I think it's just about practical. The issue, I think, is not so much with the energy, because you don't want continuous output at that sort of huge amount. What you want to do is to accumulate energy from a power plant and then store it and release it in one great pulse, or series of pulses that might last 20 seconds or a minute or something. So there's a huge acceleration because you're getting up to 20% the speed of light in that period of time. But it's been shown that the sort of electronic components that are going to go into this thing can withstand those sorts of accelerations. So that isn't an issue. I think the biggest technical challenge is focusing the laser beam and keeping it on target. So what you're going to have in order for the very feeble effect of light pressure to exert the necessary acceleration is you have to have a collecting area like a sail, a reflecting sail or a parachute, and you've got to hit that with a ground-based laser beam when this object is out in space. So you take all your swarm of little space probes with their parachute-like appendages and release them in space and then zap them one by one with this powerful ground-based laser. So focusing that laser through the atmosphere and on that tiny little pinpoint and then not vaporizing the payload you're trying to accelerate, all of that represents a formidable challenge. And so this isn't something that's going to be done next year.
Okay. Well, we have to take yet another short commercial break. But after the break, let's talk about the movies. There are so many movies that incorporate physics and mathematics, like The Martian, Imitation Game, The Theory of Everything, Interstellar. So let's take a short commercial break. And after the break, let's talk about going to the movies. And what does a theoretical physicist think when they watch Hollywood distort or represent modern physics? Once again, this is Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129. Leave your name, the call letters of the radio station you're calling from, and the city you're calling from, and perhaps you can get on over 100 radio stations that carry Science Fantastic. So, give us a call.
You're listening to Science Fantastic. You're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku.
Welcome back to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Once again, we have with us on the line Professor Paul Davies, author of a number of great books in physics and cosmology, including How to Build a Time Machine, The Eerie Silence, and Cosmic Jackpot, Why Our Universe is Just Right for Life. He's a professor of theoretical physics at Arizona State University and director of the Beyond Center for Fundamental Concepts in Science and winner of the $1 Million Templeton Prize. Well, Paul, let's now go to the movies. Most of the time, we physicists have to cringe watching how science is distorted by the media. But let's talk about some of the positive examples. For example, The Imitation Game, about the life of Alan Turing, one of the founders of the modern computer and artificial intelligence. What are your thoughts about The Imitation Game?
First of all, you're completely right that we sit and cringe for most of the movies, but The Imitation Game, I thought, was done very well. There was a little bit of departure, I think, from historical reality, not in the science or the mathematics, but just in the personalities, when the big breakthrough in decoding the German Enigma code during World War II came in a flash of inspiration in a pub near to Bletchley Park, which is where Turing and the other scientists were beavering away. I feel a strong affinity to this particular movie because my brother, who worked for English Heritage for many years, was instrumental in providing a grant for Bletchley Park to be restored and turned into a museum. And so he and I and other members of our family did a VIP tour there a few years ago.
Is that
and
right?
The curator rolled out the red carpet and let us play with a few Enigma machines and inspect some of the reconstructed equipment. And we got the inside story on Alan Turing and his unusual habits of work. And I thought that the movie captured really rather well the combination of genius and eccentricity that Turing represented, and also the monumental and heroic effort, all going on in secret, of cracking this Enigma code and other codes as well, and kept secret for the duration of the war, and in fact for many years afterwards. It was only dimly recognized what a significant contribution this had made. Some people think it shortened the period of the war by up to 2 years, because of being able to read basically all the German information from their high command.
And there's a rumor that maybe you can clarify. Alan Turing committed suicide because he was persecuted by the British government for being gay, even though he was part and parcel of winning the war effort by cracking the German code. And he dipped an apple in cyanide. Some people think, as a rumor, that Apple computers, the symbol of Apple, is an apple with a bite taken out in honor of Alan Turing. But yes, what are your thoughts?
Well, I believe that all along. It just seemed such a nice story, but I decided to check on it a year or so ago, and found that this was probably not the correct explanation. It had more to do with the fruit growing in the Silicon Valley area than with Alan Turing. But one never really knows with these icons what the true provenance is.
Okay. Now, also, the movie Theory of Everything. I saw the movie, won an Oscar. However, I was a little bit disappointed that it didn't talk too much about the theory of everything. It talked more about the physical affliction of Stephen Hawking. But what are your thoughts about the movie, The Theory of Everything?
Again, you picked a movie with which I have a strong affinity, because I was there through most of the episodes being portrayed in that movie. For example, I went to Cambridge in 1970, and Stephen was just the lad in the wheelchair a few offices along. I knew him very well. I have this distinctive memory of the British tea break is such an important part of life in Britain generally, but academic life in particular. You take a break at a particular fixed time, like say 4 in the afternoon, and everybody congregates in one area, and you have some tea and and talk, and that's the time when you really interact. And my memory of tea break at the Institute of Theoretical Astronomy, where Stephen and I were young postdocs, was of him propelling his wheelchair backwards. In those days he could do it himself, down the corridor, and I'd think, must be tea time. So I loved all those early scenes of Cambridge because it was very true. I also liked the characterization of most of the people. I didn't find the Roger Penrose character very convincing, but Dennis Sciamma, who was Stephen's PhD thesis advisor, I knew him very well, and the actor portrays Dennis just like the real Dennis. So it was a trip down memory lane for me. I loved the film.
Mm-hmm. And what about the movie Interstellar? That was a movie that actually asked physicists like Kip Thorne of Caltech to be an advisor to do some of the computer simulations of going through a black hole and a wormhole. So what are your thoughts about the movie Interstellar?
Well, Interstellar was, of course, a very different sort of movie. So that was really well into the realms of science fiction. And although it's based on some things that we know and love, like black holes and then much more conjectural wormholes, and the notion of time warps and time distortion, and all of this came into the movie in an integral way in the story. It didn't really sort of add up in terms of what the physics tells us and in terms of the logical consistency. There's always a problem about any sort of causal loops or time loops, that you have to get it right. And it's very rare in any sort of movie involving weird effects in time that somehow the consistency of the physics and the narrative that the director wants to portray sit together nicely. So I thought it was a bit of a fudge. But, the special effects were good, and I got carried along in the story. It's not difficult for me to get caught up in a story. I'm a rather emotional person. I often end up crying in movies, even in happy ones.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we have run out of time. But once again, our special guest today has been Professor Paul Davies. So, Paul, thank you so much for being on Science Fantastic.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Once again, join us every week when we discuss the cutting edge of science.
Black holes, the cosmos, space, and time travel, medicine, robotics, science, and technology. Professor Michio Kaku, theoretical physicist, graduated from Harvard University summa cum laude and first in his physics class. Received his PhD in physics from the University of California at Berkeley. And now, a professor of physics at City University of New York for 30 years. His goal? To complete Einstein's dream of a theory of everything, to derive an equation, to summarize all the physical laws of the universe. The co-founder of string field theory, author of the international bestsellers Hyperspace, Visions, and Parallel Worlds, and voted as one of the 100 smartest people in New York, profiling the latest cutting-edge developments in science, which revolutionize our world and touch our lives. Now, Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku.
This is Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. On Science Fantastic, we profile the amazing, jaw-dropping scientific discoveries that are revolutionizing our world and touching our lives. And in this hour, once again, we're going to throw the lines open because this hour is your hour. That's right. This is the chance for you to talk back to the radio. How often do you listen to the radio? How often do you listen to the media and something pops into your mind and you want to say something, but it's just you in an empty room and the radio? Well, you can get to the phones and give me a call by calling 866-323-2129. And all we ask of you is that you leave your name, the call letters of the radio station you're listening to, and the city you're calling from. And perhaps your thoughts will be heard on over 100 radio stations that carry Science Fantastic. And if you want to know more about what I'm up to, first of all, I'm always on tour someplace, speaking at some city, some university. go to my website, mkaku.org, mkaku.org. My latest book is called The Future of the Mind, which hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list when it first came out 2 years ago. It's now in paperback form. So you can get a copy of my latest book, The Future of the Mind. Have you ever wondered what is mental illness? Have you ever wondered, is it possible that you can read other people's thoughts? Have you ever wondered whether or not it's possible that you can one day upload memories or download memories from the internet? Well, find out by getting a copy of my book, and the answer to all those questions is yes. In the laboratory, at physics laboratories, we can do all of the above. And find out how we do it by getting a copy of my latest book. And also, you can get a copy of my other books, Physics of the Future, and also Physics of the Impossible. Both of them bestsellers, and you can find out more by going to my website, mkaku.org, mkaku.org. And once again, the lines are open. You can give us a call at our hotline number, 866-323-2129, and ask that question that you've always wanted to ask but could never do so. Okay, well, let's go to the next listener phone call.
Yeah, hi. I've always wondered if a plane in space, like in a spaceship, will continue to be a flame, and always wondered if a propeller on one of those rubber bands. If you could wind up a rubber band with a propeller attached to a little airplane, if it would fly in space or inside the space capsule. And thanks, bye.
Well, believe it or not, you're asking a question that puzzled Albert Einstein back in 1915 when he finally came out with his general theory of relativity, more powerful than his earlier special theory of relativity. And that is, if you're in an elevator and someone snaps the cable, what is it like to be inside that elevator that's falling? Or if you're in a rocket ship, are the laws of physics different if you're traveling at different velocities? Well, this is the principle of relativity, that the laws of physics are the same no matter what velocity you are traveling at. So in other words, you ask us a question, if an astronaut lights a match on the space station, assuming it's safe to do so, then the question is, will the flame be just like normal? And the answer is yes, of course. However, there's weightlessness in outer space, and so the flame is not going to be shaped like a flame. It's going to be spherical, believe it or not. When was the last time you saw a spherical flame? But the laws of physics are the same in an object traveling at uniform velocity. And so flames, light bulbs, yeah, the laws of physics are the same no matter what velocity you are traveling at. Now, you may say to yourself, well, that can't be right, because if I get a flashlight, and if I shine a flashlight on the space station is moving at 18,000 miles per hour. Therefore, the light beam should get a boost. It should be traveling at the speed of light plus 18,000 miles per hour. Nope. The speed of light is always the same no matter where you go. How can that be? If I shine a flashlight forward, backward, left, right, upside down, forward, backwards, it always travels at the same velocity. How can that be? And the reason it is that way is because space and time are distorted so that the speed of light is the same. Now, you may say to yourself, well, that violates common sense. I mean, who could create a universe like that? Well, sorry about that. That's just the way the universe is. Get used to it. Okay, well, let's move right along. Let's take the next listener phone call.
Hi, Michio. This is Michael from Lansing, Michigan. I'm calling about the processing power of the universe, and if there is really such a thing. Maybe I'm thinking about this too much in terms of video games and computers, but I was wondering, how does everything stay generated all the time, everywhere within the universe? Thank you, Michio. Bye.
Well, you ask a question that philosophers sometimes ask, and physicists are now asking that question, and that is the universe itself a computer? Is it basically a computer that's doing trillions and trillions of calculations all the time? I mean, for example, if you throw a rock in the air, it obeys Newton's laws of motion, but who tells it? Is there a computer that tells the rock to obey Newton's laws of motion? Because we have simulators that can simulate a rock moving according to Newton's laws of motion, but that's a computer. The computer tells the simulated rock to move according to Newton's laws of motion, and then, of course, you get nice, beautiful parabolas. But the question is, who teaches or who tells the real rock to go in a parabola? At that point, you start to go crazy. You begin to think, well, is the universe itself a simulation? Are we living in an imaginary universe? I mean, look at the movie The Matrix. In the movie The Matrix, everything, like a falling rock, was due to a computer. A computer calculated the motion of a falling rock, and you had the illusion that the rock was falling. Nope. The rock wasn't falling at all. It's just a software program that was designed to create a rock, to simulate a rock moving according to Newton's laws of motion. At that point, you start to go crazy, thinking about, well, how do you tell? How do you tell if the universe is a computer or is a simulation or not? Is it a falsifiable statement? Can you falsify a statement that the universe is a simulation? Now, look at it this way. Take a Hollywood movie on a CD and put it into your computer or your laptop or your TV set. Then all of a sudden on the screen, you see characters acting as if they were acting in the real world. You can imagine actors saying that, no, my universe is not a simulation. The universe is not a computer. I have free will. I can do anything I want because I am the master of my fate. But of course, you're listening to a movie in which the characters claim they have free will, they're acting of their own volition, that the universe is not a simulation. And so then the question is, how do you tell if everything is a simulation or not? Actually, I'm not quite sure. We physicists are debating this question even as we speak. There is something called a quantum computer. A quantum computer computes on individual atoms. One day it will replace silicon computers. That's why the CIA is very much interested in quantum computers. But then the question is the universe a quantum computer? Because the universe computes on atoms, because of course everything is made out of atoms. Well, like I said, at that point you start to go crazy thinking about, well, the movie The Matrix, was it really correct? We physicists are actually divided on this question. Okay, let's move right along to the next listener phone call.
Yes, my name is James Blaisdell, and I don't know the call number for the radio station that I'm calling from, and I would like to ask about cryogenics, if they're far enough advanced to be used for distance travel. Thank you.
Well, I think what you're getting at is cryonics, which is different from cryogenics. Cryogenics is a legitimate study of objects that are cooled down to very low temperatures. Cryonics is a rather dubious form of technology where you're frozen, and if you have a fatal disease and you're going to die of that disease, hopefully you can perhaps be revived at some point in the future. And at that point, we will have cured cancer and many other fatal diseases, and then you can live forever. In fact, you can actually do this on the web. If you look up cryonics, yes, they are commercial companies which say that they'll freeze your body in liquid nitrogen so that you could be traveling to a distant star at some point in the future, or just sitting in a laboratory waiting centuries into the future when there's a cure for many of these fatal diseases. Well, let me be very clear about this. In the history of science, we have not a single incidence of one man who's been frozen solid and then revived to tell about it. I repeat, there's not a single incidence of a person who's been frozen solid and then live to tell about it after he's been revived. Now, you may say to yourself, what about animals? I mean, if you live near a farm, you know that when the lake freezes over, sometimes frogs and fish are frozen in the ice, and then when springtime comes along, the frog jumps out and the fish swim as if nothing had happened. Well, there's a secret behind this. It turns out that glucose, that is a form of sugar, is an antifreeze. Just like the antifreeze you put in your car in wintertime, it lowers the freezing point of water so that your car can still function even when it's ice cold outside. In the same way, the bodily fluids of these animals are still liquid, even if they're frozen solid in a block of ice. Now, why can't you do that for interstellar space travel? Or why can't you do that to live forever? Well, there's a problem. The amount of antifreeze necessary to do this in your body will kill you. In fact, some people say, well, why can't we use other antifreezes? Well, they've been tried on animals. It turns out that the results are usually fatal. The results are that large animals simply cannot be frozen using some of the antifreezes that you find in a chemical laboratory. Now, let me be very, very clear about this. That doesn't mean that at some point in the future, somebody may figure out how to do it. That's always possible. So maybe, yes, maybe somebody who's frozen solid might be able to be thawed out at some point in the future. But at the present time, we don't know how to do it. At the present time, it's an untested technology. And at the present time, nobody has ever been thought out this way. Okay, well, let's take a short commercial break. And after the break, we're going to continue with Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129. Leave your name, the call letters of the radio station, and the city you're calling from. And maybe you can get on Science Fantastic. Give us a call.
Everyone's favorite physics professor. You're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. For more information on this and other great talk programs, go to talkradionetwork.com.
Hi, this is DV Kidd. My new book, Taking Politics Out of Solutions, is now available. Why is it nothing changes no matter who you vote for? My book covers the most critical issues eating this country alive, as well as the solutions that are already there that Congress and the agenda-driven media don't want you to know. From the disaster of our economy, why we will never have economic freedom until the Fed is abolished, trade, the meltdown underway called Obamacare, the truth about Social Security and Medicare, and the fraudulent ratification of the 17th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, a very huge issue that affects every American. The answers and solutions are in my book, All Americans Need to Read, because the worst is coming at us like a freight train. To order, go to www.newswithviews.com.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
If you are one of the millions of people who get migraines, you need to know about MiGrelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist who created MiGrelief, the patented dietary supplement that addresses nutritional deficiencies in adults and children with migraines. Thousands of physicians and pharmacists recommend MiGrelief.
Call 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
Hello, here I am, Roy Masters, 55 years on talk radio and still saving lives. Please continue helping the Foundation of Human Understanding by simply donating $19.95 per month. Paying It Forward plan will continue saving lives into the years to come. I'm a pioneer in helping our troops to overcome the ravages of PTSD without drugs. Go to FHU.com and then click on the donation page. That's FHU.com.
The Foundation of Human Understanding is a 501c3 church.
Hi folks, GetTheTea.com is the place where the popular Life Change Tea calls home. But did you know Get the Tea is also where you can purchase GMO-free organic supplements? You can read about their potent power at GetTheTea.com. Also, they just added a YouTube channel called Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Education about our health can be a life change. Maybe that's why our famous tea is called Life Change Tea. Learn about the trees for life. Our supplements have no fillers, no wheat, no rice, no garbage. And our tea is wow to the body. Make a conscious health change. Educate yourself on the most powerful essence of life, which is your health. You want more? Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Or visit our YouTube channel at Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. And don't forget our fabulous mild detox tea at getthetea.com.
Here is Professor Michio Kaku.
Welcome back to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. On Science Fantastic, we take your phone calls. How many times have you listened to the news and you wonder, gee, I wonder if I could only ask a question about that scientific discovery, about the space program, about health, about astronomy, about this great universe of ours. But hey, it's just you and you're all alone in that room all by yourself. Well, here's your chance. You can give me a call by calling 866-323-2129. And all we ask of you is that you leave your name, call letters of the radio station, and the city you're calling from, and perhaps you can get on Science Fantastic. So give us a call. 866-323-2129 is the number to call to get on national radio. Okay, moving right along, let's take the next listener phone call.
I was wondering what the frequency of the gravitational wave recently discovered with the gravitation detector equipment. And this is Constance from Warren, Michigan. Thank you.
Okay, well, yes, a few months ago it hit the headlines, not just once but twice. Scientists have actually detected vibrations from colliding black holes in outer space. Let me begin by breaking it down. Back in 1915, Einstein proposed a theory of gravity that said that gravity is actually due to the fact that space-time is like a fabric that can stretch. And if you are then moving along the fabric, then your path is bent sideways or whatever, just like what gravity does. And just like the surface of a pond now, if you were to throw a rock into a pond, you get ripples forming on the surface of the pond. And then Einstein said, well, gravity must be like that. If I have a tremendous disturbance, then shock waves should emanate from the impact, and we should be able to absorb that with our instruments. However, he did a quick calculation, and he quickly realized that in his lifetime, he would not be able to detect these gravity waves. So this went on for 100 years, from 1916 to 2016. For 100 years, scientists have tried to look for gravity waves. And they did it by building a gigantic machine called LIGO, two of them, one in Washington State and one in Louisiana. It's basically two laser beams that form a joint. It looks like an L. When these two laser beams collide, they form an interference pattern, just like the interference pattern you get on the surface of your bathtub if you make waves on the surface of your bathtub. Well, if there's a colliding black hole in outer space, it creates waves. These waves then hit the laser beam, jiggle the laser beams, and then our instruments are sensitive enough to be able to detect the fact that they've picked up the vibrations. Then you can take these vibrations, run it through an audio amplifier to get sound waves coming out of it. Now, the media call this the music of the spheres. That is music from black holes. Actually, it's not anything of the sort. But, if you stretch your imagination a bit, what we're talking about is gravity waves from space-time itself jiggling a diaphragm, and the diaphragm then jiggles air waves, giving you sound. And if you go to nasa.gov, you can actually find the link where you can listen to it. You can actually listen to some of the vibrations. Now, the frequency of these vibrations is pretty low because you're talking about sound frequencies, and it really has not much to do with the real physics of what is happening. The real physics of what is happening is when I have what is called a spin 2 wave coming at you that can then be broken down using electromagnetic sensors and laser beams. But it's kind of cute. It's kind of cute the fact that you can then take this electromagnetic wave, run it through a sound amplifier, and hear it. But you're not really hearing the black hole, as the media said. Okay, well, let's take a short commercial break, and after the break, we're going to continue with Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129. Give us a call.
You're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku.
Welcome back to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Yes, this hour is your hour. This is the time when you can get to the telephones and give us a call and have your thoughts heard on over 100 radio stations that carry Science Fantastic. And let's say you're at the dinner table and your kids ask you a science question from class that leaves you stumped. Well, what are you going to do? Act dumb? No. You can act like a genius. You're going to get to the telephones and call 866-323-2129. And hey, why not put your kids on the telephone and have them ask that question on 100 radio stations that carry Science Fantastic? So give us a call. No question is too dumb or too stupid, because sometimes the dumbest questions are the most profound. In fact, at the turn of the last century, there was a 16-year-old boy who asked himself a stupid question, and that is, can you outrace a light beam? Such a stupid question, right? Well, he answered the question. It took him 10 years to do so, but he finally answered that question, and with that, he changed world history. That 16-year-old boy was Albert Einstein. So ask a stupid question, and sometimes you can change world history. Okay, well, let's now take the next listener phone call.
Hey, Dr. Kaku. My name is Wade Anderson. I'm calling from Rainsville, Alabama. And I was just wondering is it not possible that darkness is faster than light? Because I've seen programs that show black holes in space that light cannot escape. Thank you.
Well, the short answer is no. It turns out that darkness is nothing but the absence of light, and therefore light travels at the speed of light, obviously. So the absence of light that is a shadow would also emanate and move at the speed of light. Now, black holes, as you pointed out, light cannot escape from a black hole. Light simply orbits around a black hole. But if you are in the frame, that is, if you're in a rocket ship traveling along the light beam, it would also travel at the speed of light. And so, any way you cut it, you cannot break the light barrier this way. Darkness does not travel faster than the speed of light. Darkness is nothing but light itself. But here's a question that I asked myself when I was a kid. If you get a flashlight and zip it across the heavens, from one side of the heavens, one horizon, to the other horizon, and you were to go far enough out there and out of space, didn't that light beam go faster than the speed of light? Because you went from one side of the universe to the other side of the universe at a velocity much faster than the speed of light. And the answer to that is actually yes. However, you cannot send net information this way. Yes, it's true that if you get a flashlight and zip it across the night sky, then the image will actually travel faster than the speed of light. But you cannot send usable information that way. Here's another example. Let's take a pair of scissors and close the scissors and then calculate the speed at which the joints of the two blades converge. If you go far enough into outer space, assuming these scissors are huge and very lengthy, then at a certain point, the joining point joins faster than the speed of light, because of course the scissors are millions of miles long and you close them very rapidly. If the blades are long enough, then the joint will also close faster than the speed of light. But again, it's useless information. You cannot send Morse code this way. You cannot send usable information. So can some things travel faster than light? The answer is yes. Images. Images will go faster than light, like zipping a flashlight across the night sky. But it's fake in the sense you cannot send Morse code this way. You cannot send usable information to the nearby stars faster than light. Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time in this segment of Science Fantastic, but keep the calls coming. We'll take a short commercial break. And after the break, we're going to continue with Open Mic on Science Fantastic. Once again, if you want to ask your question on over 100 radio stations that carry the feed, then give us a call at 866-323-2129. All we ask of you is that you leave your name, call letters of the radio station, and the city you're calling from, and perhaps you can be heard on over 100 radio stations that carry Science Fantastic. So be part of the fun. Why be left out of the fun? Be part of science by giving us a call at 866-323-2129.
You're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. For more information on this and other great talk programs, go to talkradionetwork.com.
Spread the word. Now there is powerful nutritional support for migraine sufferers. It's estimated that 35 million people suffer with migraines. Are you or a family member one of them? Well, now there is MigRelief by Akeso Health Sciences. MigRelief is a safe and healthy, non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address the nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Just take 2 capsules a day of MigRelief for 3 months and see the amazing difference it can make in your life, or get your money back. No questions asked. There's nothing to lose. Akeso Health Sciences MigRelief has been helping people just like you for 20 years. Try MigRelief and get your life back risk-free with just one call. Call 1-800-MIG-7354, 1-800-MIG-7354, or go to MIG911.com.
Having a place to go after school will make you a better student. Having an outlet to express yourself will make you a better artist. Having something to do together will make you a better family. At the Y, we're helping build better friends, listeners, writers, swimmers, scientists, and musicians, one chance at a time. Give the gift of opportunity. Donate to the Y at ymca.net/give. The Y, for a better us.
Hi, this is DV Kidd. I have some exciting news. My new book, Taking Politics Out of Solutions, is now hot off the press. We cannot solve the cancers eating away at our republic if we don't know how they got started. Do you know that not a penny of your federal income tax funds a single function of the federal government? How can that be, and where does it go? The answers and solutions are in my book. To order, go to www.newswithviews.com.
You wouldn't dare build a house without a blueprint, and neither should you invest without a plan. Hi, Sam Sorbo here. My good friends at Landmark Capital specialize in tailor-made portfolios called Your Financial Blueprint. Let Landmark Capital show you how to control your retirement and safeguard your money from government seizure, protect it from an upcoming recession, and maximize your financial growth in case of inflation. Landmark Capital can show you how to put physical metals, gold and silver, into your IRA or 401k and take physical possession today. Your 401k IRA is a ticking time bomb. The government's racked up our debt to $18 trillion, and there's currently $18.2 trillion in retirement. 12 different countries have already seized their citizens' assets like bank and retirement accounts, and it can happen here any day now, according to the Federal Reserve. Get the facts. Call 855-747-5947, 855-747-5947, or find them at landmarkgold.com. Call 855-747-5947 or visit landmarkgold.com.
Welcome back to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Once again, give us a call because the lines are open. You're not going to get a busy signal. Give us a call at 866-323-2129. All we ask of you is that you leave your name, call letters of the radio station, and the city you're calling from. And perhaps, just perhaps, you can have your thoughts heard on national radio. So, give us a call. Well, let's take the next listener phone call.
Hey, it's 8:20 a.m. in Tampa, Florida. The theory of relativity was first published by the Frenchman Henri Poincaré before Einstein later plagiarized it. And then this general theory of relativity is not a general theory of relativity at all. It's just a theory of gravity. Einstein had no business calling it a general theory of relativity, and it was first published by David Hilbert, the German David Hilbert. So why is his name in any of the physics books? He didn't do any of these things if you look closely at it. Thank you.
Well, you ask a very interesting question, and I once wrote a biography of Albert Einstein called Einstein's Cosmos, where I actually went through each and every one of the claims that you mentioned. Well, first of all, as most historians know, and as Einstein himself said on a number of occasions, that when he wrote down the theory of relativity in 1905, well, yeah, there were other people that were very close to getting it, but they didn't have the full Lorentz transformation, and they misinterpreted the data all incorrectly. First of all, if you shot a light beam in the forward direction and sideways, you would expect the velocity of light to change depending upon the direction of the light beam. If I have a flashlight and I shine it forward, backward, up, down, left, and right, you would expect the speed of light to be different depending upon the direction that you sent it. But no, it comes out the same every single time. And so, since the Earth moves in space, people said that the Earth must be moving in an ether wind, and the ether wind makes the yardstick contract. And therefore, there were all these papers trying to create a mechanical contraction of meter sticks in order to get the Michelson-Morley experiments to come out right. Well, here comes Einstein and says, no, you got it all wrong. It's space itself. It's space that is contracting. That means that everything in space, not just meter sticks, but people, brains, bodies, everything contracts along that same direction. So in other words, he was proposing a general principle for all of reality, not simply an electromechanical effect to explain the fact that meter sticks were coming out wrong. Now, yeah, Poincaré was very close. Other people were close. Lorentz, Fitzgerald, yeah, they were close. And Henri Poincaré, the great mathematician, was also very close. But again, they missed it. They didn't realize that these effects were effects that affected the speed of time and space itself. They all missed it. Einstein was saying that even clocks, everything, not just meter sticks that you measure in the Michelson-Morley experiment, but reality itself was slowing down. That was mind-boggling, and only Einstein got it right. Second of all, Einstein then came out with the theory of gravity. It's called general theory because it's more general than a theory of light. It's a theory of gravity. Because back then they didn't know about the nuclear force. Well, let's take a short commercial break, and then I'll talk about whether or not Einstein was beat by a German mathematician by the name of David Hilbert. Okay, let's take a short commercial break. Once again, you are listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129.
Don't feel bad. I didn't understand theoretical n-dimensional metaphysics the first time either. But if you call and ask, Professor Kaku will get you there. You're listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku.
Welcome back to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. The lines are open. This means you're not going to get a busy signal. Give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129. And here's that chance to ask that science question that you always wanted to ask, but, well, never had the guts, never had the opportunity, or maybe you were just too embarrassed. Well, this is the time where you can make that phone call. 866-323-2129 is the number to call. Well, where we last left off, a listener called in and said, wait a minute, maybe Einstein has to share the credit, or maybe he even stole some ideas from David Hilbert, a famous German mathematician who published some of these ideas. Well, I looked into the history of that charge. It turns out that from 1905 to 1915, Einstein was struggling for a general theory of relativity, a theory not just of light, but of gravity as well. Because back then, that's all they knew about. They didn't know about any nuclear force. They thought that that was it, light and gravity. That's what made the universe tick. Well, David Hilbert, being a mathematician, comes out with a list of unsolved questions in mathematics. He challenged the world of mathematics to solve these unsolved problems. And of course, the world's greatest minds tried to solve these problems. One of the problems that David Hilbert wrote about was to mathematically put down all the laws of nature, all of them, all the laws of physics into a single framework. Well, he heard that Einstein was working on this. And so he invited Albert Einstein to give 3 long lectures at his university about his unfinished general theory of relativity. So then Einstein elaborately laid out this enormous mathematical structure using tensor calculus, the Ricci tensor, using the most advanced forms of mathematics known at that time as an attempt to create the unified field theory. Well, Hilbert, being a mathematician, realized that there was one thing missing in this elaborate mathematical framework, and that is a series of identities called the Bianchi identities. And Hilbert, being a mathematician, said, well, look, you, Einstein, have laid out this tremendous apparatus, this huge mathematical foundation, but you miss one last step, and that is the Bianchi identities. Well, Hilbert, being a mathematician, completed it and published it without giving Einstein credit. Well, this was scandalous. absolutely scandalous. Here was Einstein, who had given a series of talks. Many people had heard his talks, laying out the mathematical foundation of general relativity. And he, in turn, also later got the Bianchi identities, and he finished it. So he published his theory in November of 1915, shortly after David Hilbert also published his theory, which, of course, was the same theory, because he copied it from Albert Einstein. Well, Einstein was PO'd, to say the least. He even wrote a letter to Hilbert a few months later, saying that at first I was irritated, but now I've gotten over it. So in other words, Hilbert was a great mathematician. He did complete the last mathematical step leading to what is called today the Einstein-Hilbert equation. And so in honor of both individuals, we call it the Einstein-Hilbert action. All textbooks will say that. But everybody knows who really got it first. Everybody knows who wrote the foundation, who wrote the mathematics, who wrote the entire framework, but he just missed the last step, which was the Bianchi identities. And in fact, it's now a stain on Hilbert's reputation that he actually tried to steal an idea from Albert Einstein in order to complete one of his unfinished problems in mathematics. But like I said, we physicists, we have completed the dots. In fact, we even now have the notebooks of Albert Einstein going year by year. In fact, in 1912, 3 years before, he actually got the correct equation, but he made a mistake, a mathematical mistake, and crossed out that equation. But he actually had the general theory actually back in 1912, 3 years before David Hilbert. And so the lesson is, yes, we're all human. Even the greatest mathematician of his time, David Hilbert, could try to swipe a theory from the greatest physicist of his time, Albert Einstein. Okay, well, let's move right along to the next listener phone call.
Hi, my name's Eugene Pate, and I just listened to your radio show about Stephen Hawking's idea of sending a postage-sized spacecraft to another planet. Well, the whole idea of building the lasers and stuff seems sort of prohibitive. What's wrong with the idea of building a small miniature rocket ship with a small amount of rocket fuel that you could take aboard the space shuttle, much like a model rocket with the same postage-sized technology on it, and since you've got something already in space and doesn't have to escape the atmosphere, you can shoot this towards another planet and have a little fuel left for guidance along the way. But once you put an object in motion in space and attain a certain speed, there's nothing to slow it down. So you could just take a rocket up on the space shuttle with your postage stamp technology and launch it in space.
Okay, well, I have 10 seconds to answer that question, and that is, your idea is ingenious, but it's not going to work because you need 800 megawatts. That's the power of 800 nuclear power plants, and you can't put that on the International Space Station. It's simply prohibitively expensive. Okay, well, once again, you've been listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Keep the calls coming. Once again, if you want to get on over 100 radio stations that carry Science Fantastic, give us a call. The hotline number is 866-323-2129. And in closing, once again, let me say that you can go to my website. It's mkaku.org, mkaku.org, and find out exactly what I'm up to. Go to my Facebook site. We're up to 3 million fans on Facebook. We're up to 500,000 fans on Twitter. So find out what all the excitement is about. Go to my website, mkaku.org, mkaku.org. Well, once again, you've been listening to Science Fantastic with Professor Michio Kaku. Give us a call and you perhaps can get on Science Fantastic.